Are you playing the white or the black?
White.
Make your move, and may the best podcaster win.
D4.
D5.
C4.
Pawn takes C4.
I see you've chosen to accept the Queen's Gambit.
I see you've been studying Bernstein vs. Capablanca 1914.
I'm always prepared.
Are you prepared for this podcast?
I'm ready to dive deep.
Would you say deep into the stories we love and how they're adapted?
One could say that.
Well, let's begin. Welcome to Read, Watch, Play, episode 16, covering Queen's Gambit. Nick, how's your Sicilian defense these days?
Absolute shit. I play a lot of chess online, and my rating has plummeted in the past month, and I couldn't buy a win. So,
are you a big chess player then? You play online? You have a rating? I feel like I did not know this about you.
I play 4 or 5 times a week. I'll play a game.
Wow. Like, how long does a game take for someone of your stature?
Yeah, well, the beauty of online chess, well, I guess really any chess, but online makes it easier, is you can play games as fast as you want.
Yeah.
I think the standards are like, for most people, it's like 30 minutes would be a long game. You know, each side, 10 minutes is probably pretty standard, or like a 3-minute rapid game would be.
A Benny Watts speed chess.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is.
Are you playing other people, or are you playing computer AI?
Playing people all around the world.
Wow. Do you
just
chat with them during the game?
No, I don't. Not very often.
You?
Not unless they're making me mad. Yeah, you can. There's definitely a chat feature. But I played with people in 94 countries last year.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Pretty cool.
It tells you that? Does it give you like a Spotify Unwrapped at the end of the year?
Literally, you get your chess.com Unwrapped.
Do you look forward to it?
Every year. I've only gotten 2 of them, but you know.
Yeah. Did you get into chess again because of the show?
Yeah.
Or have you always played chess? I don't know this about you.
I've always played chess.
Yeah.
I haven't always played chess well.
Yeah.
Arguably, I still don't.
Yeah.
But I play better than the average person who doesn't play chess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if me, I played chess. I played growing up, but I'm just going willy-nilly. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to what's happening on my board. So, yeah, you probably clean the slate with me.
Your ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, even the first move, it's just, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just a shot in the dark. But
I like my odds.
Yeah.
We should definitely play when we go to Disney World.
Yeah, totally. Anything else?
I heard some ice in that drink. Is that something a little harder than our normal coffee?
No, this is being in my 30s, I now drink prebiotic soda, which is better for my tummy. But it still gives me the carbonation.
You are so old.
It's pretty good. It's the Whole Foods brand, the Poppy or Poopy, you might say. But they have a bunch of flavors, and this one and the ginger ale one they're pretty prime. They're great.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I was a big soda drinker as a kid, and I really got off of it. And this scratches that carbonation itch.
Nice.
So I really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we get into it?
Yeah. If you had to guess, we cover adaptations. I did not know this was an adaptation until I think you told me.
Yeah.
We've covered a bunch of stuff. Check the backlog. This is episode 16. So we've got 15 prior ones and some bonus episodes to check out. We release every other Tuesday. Hit the follow button, subscribe, whatever they call it on your podcast, and rate us 5 stars. If you're going to do anything else, don't even bother doing it. Nick, if people do want to follow us outside of on those apps, how do they see what we're up to?
Yeah. First and foremost, go to our Instagram, Read, Watch, Play Podcast. You'll find us there. We like to post updates on what's coming out, what's coming up. We want to hear what your thoughts on all of these are. So we would love to talk to you there. We check it all the time. So that's probably the best place. And if you do have a negative review, we have a Gmail. It's readwatchplaypod@gmail.com. We check it very frequently, and we will most certainly pretend that we will eventually get back to you.
Yeah, it was a big week. You've had a lot of power issues with Houston related things. And
yeah, we had a tornado.
I had to post a reel, and I learned what a reel was. So if you have complaints, that one was on me. Learning things every day. Do you have any rapid fire questions off the top?
What did you like more, the book or the movie? And by movie, I mean TV show.
Probably the series, the show.
Do you think that the book is a value add if you've already seen the show?
It's enjoyable if you've seen the show. Is it going to expand much? Probably not.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was your favorite chess scene in the show?
In the show?
Yeah, in the show.
I'll say the first. Her first tournament. I think it's the Kentucky State Championship.
Same. It's a good answer.
It's great. It's good stuff.
Classic scene.
Yeah, it's real good. Spoilers. If you haven't seen Queen's Gambit, probably going to spoil the show. And if you've seen Queen's Gambit, the book is spoiled for you because it does not deviate at all. So
none.
You can proceed, unharmed, even if you're planning on reading the book. Synopsis for those who are listening to this and have never watched Queen's Gambit. So if that's one person out there, here's what the Queen's Gambit is. I actually learned a new word when I was researching this, and I'm not entirely sure how to say it. But this book is considered a Bildungsroman, which is a literary genre that focuses on the psychological and moral growth of a protagonist from childhood to adulthood. Example of this, a more modern example of this could be something like The Kite Runner. Some people even consider Harry Potter to be one. You're meeting them as they're a child and they're growing up and changing their perspective on the world into adulthood, and you traverse all of those years. Never heard of this before, but that's what this book is considered. This is new to you, I'm assuming so.
Yeah, I've never heard that word.
Yeah, no idea.
Your pronunciation was as good as any I'm going to get. So
yeah, we've heard your pronunciation on this podcast.
Hey, I try though. I do try.
Yeah. You kind of gave up pretty hard on DV. But
I just gave him a killer nickname. There's a difference.
That's true. Yeah. This book is exactly what a Bildungsroman, said. It is the coming of age story of Elizabeth Harmon, who, after a tragic car crash, is placed at a girls' orphanage in Kentucky. Beth discovers the game of chess through janitor Mr. Scheibel. I pronounced it in my head Scheibel when I was reading. I forgot how they said it in the show. So I'm probably going to flip back and forth between those two. And Beth finds that she has prodigious skill at this game. And the story tracks her growth as a rising chess player and her growth as a person through adoption, success, loss, addiction, and ultimately triumph.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Did I miss any key beats?
No.
It's a pretty straightforward story.
Just listen to Randy's synopsis. You don't have to read the book.
Yeah. That was pretty good. This book, like I said, had no idea this was a book. How did you find out this was a book?
I found out when the show came out.
The show was coming out?
I don't remember exactly how I figured it out, but I thought, maybe I'll read this because that was COVID when that came out. So we were all sitting at home anyway. And then I didn't read it until we were prepping for this, but
yeah,
I did know about it.
I feel like they didn't have a title screen at the beginning that said based on, I don't remember that even on my rewatch. I don't remember it saying based on a novel or something.
I think it's at the end.
Yeah, maybe you're right. So this was written by an American novelist and screenwriter, Walter, it says Tevis, but isn't it Tevin or is it Tevis? Was I right?
No, it's Tevis.
It's Tevis, yeah. He wrote 6 novels. Actually, 4 of them 3 were adapted for film, and one was adapted for TV. So he's got the kind of these screenwriter chops for sure. His most notable one was The Color of Money, the 80s Scorsese movie with Tom Cruise, the billiards one. And he grew up in Kentucky, obviously impacted his writing. He served in the Navy, and upon discharge, he used his opportunity to further that into education to become a degree in literature, was what he pursued. This is relevant as during his Navy years, he developed some serious vices, he said, of smoking, gambling, and heavy drinking, which are on prominent display in all of his books. And the drinking, went really hard for him, where after his first novel, or not his first novel, but his novel, The Hustler, got its movie rights secured, he moved his family to Mexico, he said, and stayed drunk for 8 months straight. And in his wife's autobiography, his son Will claims that he wrote pieces of himself as an anti-hero into all of his books. He was born with a serious heart condition and was routinely given pills as a young kid in Kentucky. So you have that, and then obviously the alcoholism. He eventually died at a very young age of 56 from lung cancer, but he did get sober before through Alcoholics Anonymous. So he was recovered at the time of his death. But he really wrote pieces of himself into this. He was also a massive billiards player, which is where The Color of Money came from. He was an obsessive chess player as well and got very into that. So all of these novels are kind of like big passions and interests of his. That I thought was pretty interesting. I've never read anything else from him. Have you? I've seen The Color of Money. That's it.
I've seen The Color of Money, and I've seen The Hustler.
Okay. I don't think I've seen The Hustler. It sounds familiar, but
I think they actually remade it, and it's like a Bradley Cooper movie. Yeah.
I feel like I had a similar thought trajectory, but I really couldn't. I didn't scour anything up.
Yeah, that's off the head too. So right off
could
the
be
dome.
totally wrong.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I do know of Hustle, which is the Adam Sandler movie where he plays the scout for the Sixers. Pretty good movie. I think that was a Netflix release as well. So we both saw this first before we read it. And you just read the book for the first time as well this year, correct?
Yeah, listened to it on audiobook, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as you read it, what did you like the book? Was it what you expected? Did it do well? No?
It was a miss for me. If I'm being completely honest, I was not joking at all. The 2 times I've already said, don't read the book. And the reason I say that, I don't know if this is a criticism of the book or accolades towards the show, but because it hit every beat so well, with one notable exception of something I think the book didn't do well anyway, I don't see a reason to read the book. I think you can get what you need. There's no additional character depth. There's no additional point of views where I'm learning, more about Beth Harmon's drug addiction or how she's getting clean or her thought process. I didn't get anything additional from reading the book. Not a single thing. And that bothered me. But also I'm wondering if it's just because I've seen the show like 3 times straight through. So I could just know the story well enough. It is what it is.
Yeah, I'd only watched it once. The typical, I'm sure how every person saw the show literally in like a day or the span of a day and a half during COVID. And I've not seen or thought about it in those 4 years since then. So the story was like a little hazy for me heading in. The things I remembered were like, it was ingrained in my mind, the scene where she tries to steal all the pills and drops the thing. Like, I remember that vividly. I remember really liking Mr. Scheibel. And I remember like the Russian and her playing him.
Yeah.
But it was very fuzzy for me. So when I read the book, it wasn't like it blew me away. But it was kind of just fun to like recall the story a bit as I was reading through it. And super short. I mean, this is what, like, it was like 250 pages. Like, this is a breeze of a book, if that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought it was it felt nice to kind of read like a contained story where there's not a whole lot going on outside of her playing chess. Like that is all she thinks about. And you're in the book, you're in her head. And that is all Elizabeth thinks about. And it is the driving narrative. So definitely didn't blow me away here. But I do agree with you that I think the show follows so closely to the book and honestly expands in some areas a little bit more that you're not getting a different experience with the read. Like if that's what you're looking for, probably not for you.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It is a sports story though. And really the first one we've done for the podcast.
Yeah. Kind of reminded me of like Whiplash, where like it's not a direct competition, like it is a competition, but like a direct sport that you think of in your mind, like a physical sport. Where Whiplash is like drumming is being in a jazz band is not a traditional sport, but there's like this obsessive desire to be truly excellent at something by a person. And it kind of reminded me of that, of like, this is all this kid thinks about is drumming, and chess is all Beth thinks about, like literally nothing else.
Yeah. And not even just excelling, I would say to be the best, especially in the Queen's Gambit, where the pinnacle is, playing the world number one.
Yeah. Yeah. I was laughing as I was reading through some of your thoughts on this, and you put, I think what the book did best, I'm reading your own quote here, was tell a story that someone thought was worth adapting. I was just like, fucking burn.
I told you, I didn't like it.
Yeah. Was there anything you liked
literally
about it?
wrote fucking burn?
Yeah, I did.
under my note.
Yeah, I was laughing. Yeah, so nothing kind of on the redeeming end for you for this book.
Okay, it's not a bad book.
Yeah.
But in terms of consuming the story, in my mind, it is clearly the second place finisher.
How would you like if they never made this into a series and you just picked up this book? What do you think your perspective would be?
Like a 3.5 out of 5 on Goodreads.
Yeah,
like better than average. Like it's a good book. It's a quality book.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get into the essay scene that didn't work for me at all. But other than that, it's a good book. It's well written. It's quick.
Yeah.
The pacing of the story is really good, I think.
Yeah. It moves.
You said it was 250 pages. It was only like a 7-hour audio. Yeah. I listened to them a little sped up, but it was only like 9 hours on regular speed. So all in all, it probably would have been pretty good if I wasn't an Anya Taylor-Joy stan, and if I didn't think the show was so good.
Yeah,
I might think higher of it. But again, in this particular context of comparing the book to the show, clear second place.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I did. There was something appealing about. It's just fun to read about people who are really good at something, far better at something than I will ever be at anything. And
podcasting.
It's true.
We're coming for you, Joe Rogan.
And it's just like fun to read that. Like, she has very minimal like slip ups in the chess world through the book. Like she's just kicking ass for 230 of the 250 pages at chess, and there's like a few losses, and it's just kind of like fun to read. So I thought that was good. But the book did not do well. I don't have a ton outside of what we've said already, but the one thing that is in the book that is not in the show is Jolene pretty much rapes Beth in like the first, not even just the like, it's probably like the first 5% of the book, the first time they like interact. Like it's like Beth's like first week, I think. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's pretty wild, understatement. Probably super problematic that Jolene is also like the only person of color in the book, and then is like written to do this, which like has no bearing on the plot at all, because as you've seen the show, like Jolene comes back and they have a good relationship and Jolene gets her out of this rut and it's just never discussed again. It's like, it just felt so, I just don't understand like what he was going for.
Yeah, the essay scene was just horrid. I to be honest, I kind of found it in poor taste because it doesn't further the plot at all. You know, I understand that that's a very real topic and you can't just shy away from real topics in literature, but it kind of felt like it was in there just to be in there. And that made it even worse for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's completely reasonable to be in a book like that shit happens and people write about it. But for just there to be like, no, it's like it just happened. And then it was written with like the same gravitas of like Beth like fell off the slide at recess one day. And then it was just like never thought about again. Like she was just fine.
Yeah.
It was just so strange. Like I couldn't believe it when I was reading it. It's just like I have no idea what he was going for.
I also thought there were times where the book read like a man who was trying to write a coming of age story about a young woman. I read a lot and I've read some books of that perspective written by women and it has a completely different feel. And I don't know, it just kind of got awkward for me at points because it felt like he was trying to talk about something he didn't really understand. And why would he, right? Like, why would you and I understand that experience either? But it just felt a little uncomfortable at times. And it didn't work for me all the time when he was trying to talk specifically about like the changes her body was going through.
Yeah, I felt like I didn't think about it as I was reading it, but it's an interesting take for sure. And I think what I did feel as I was reading it was how singular Beth's thoughts were on chess, with like nothing existing outside of it. And I could definitely see him, you know, the perspective of like, struggling to like write her like going through the adolescence to adult, you know, portions of the book. But I will give him credit for writing a female character in the 80s as a 50-year-old white dude who was in the Navy that is like not a sex symbol. She hardly thinks about like romantic relationships. You know, she's purely just like an elite performer in something and doesn't have any of the typical baggage that goes with like how female characters, you know, could be written. So I felt that was a bit commendable, but I totally see where you're coming from on like, it's a little bit weird. Just, I don't know. Any man who kind of has to write a women going through puberty is just a bit awkward. And there's just no getting around that. I think he did a pretty great job in eschewing some of the stereotypes of what a female character could be. And that was just,
I'll give you that.
All pushed to the side, which I thought was good. Did you have any favorite sections of the book?
Other than the one I think you're about to bring up, I thought Walter did a very good job building tension during the chess scenes. Mm-hmm. So those were exciting to read. You know, they're kind of page turning. But other than that, we're going to talk about them in the best scenes for the adaptation. So I'll just leave it for that section.
Yeah. I think, for me, I mean, any of the scenes, almost the first half of the book, I really love. It's not a long book, but the first half, just her kind of discovering chess, really enjoyed that just as much as I did in the show. Really love her stuff with Mrs. Wheatley, her adopted mom.
That's where I thought you were going.
Yeah. Just really, really enjoy that stuff of seeing them gallivanting across the country. It's just good stuff. Super enjoyable.
Those were great scenes in the book and in the show. Truly.
Yeah. I mean, and on paper, like a book that is so focused on chess, the fact that this was like comprehensible and exciting and engaging for someone who doesn't know chess at that level, huge win on that front.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your take on kind of the themes that we had going on here, because some of them are pretty heavy. You know, we're going to talk about addiction, control, or the lack of, loneliness. You know,
Yeah.
one desire for acceptance.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those are really prevalent. Well, I mean, what were your take on the themes? Did they hit for you, or was it a miss?
I thought he wrote about addiction, about kind of isolation, and probably the chaos of a orphanage. I thought that he wrote about that pretty well and pretty real. It makes sense that he was coming from a place of experience with a lot of that. Initially, the theme that was kind of coming to me was that, like, this is showcasing someone who is so driven to do and be the best at, like, what they're doing. It's like, the Tiger Woods of chess I'm, like, reading about here. And, Tiger Woods also the parallel of getting yourself into trouble and liking alcohol. But if I get, like, really deep into it, the one thing that I was kind of thinking about after rewatching the show too was Beth's life prior to the orphanage was so secluded with, like, it really seemed like it was just her and her mom. Don't even know if she was really at school age yet. So she was so isolated, and then she's thrown into this orphanage where she has no privacy. She sleeps in a huge dormitory room. She's going to classes all day. She's going to, like, this church stuff on weekends. And the only escape she finds is literally going into a basement away from everybody else, and then also finding within there a game that she can lose herself within and find, like, brief moments of solitude. And I think it's just showing a little bit about how she finds comfort in that. And that's a little bit more on the nose in the show when she's talking to the life reporter and saying how, it's a world of 64 squares, and that brings her comfort. And, in the book, she says the quote of, like, something in her life was solved after she learned about chess. And it's almost like you get this perspective that to maintain her sanity, she needs an escape. So, like, this theme of escapism within this, they have no guidance counselor, at this orphanage, no therapist for Beth, and she finds what she needs, in something like that through chess. And I don't know if they're trying to tell a cautionary tale on obsessions or anything like that. Or, I was thinking of, like, Olympic athletes who train their whole life to be good at something, and then their career's over at, like, 20 years old. Like, that's brought up a lot in this book of, like, what are you going to do after chess?
Not even after chess, after she gets to number one.
Yeah. It's like,
once you're on top, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So it's just like, as I thought about it a little bit more, you can just see she goes on the typical hero's journey where there's a call to adventure with chess, and she finds her mentor, Mr. Scheibel, who leads her into this new world. And she faces the ups and downs. She gets banned from chess at school, and she loses her mother, and she loses to Borgov. And then as she's sinking and almost at the point of no return, this person comes forward, Jolene, and, brings her back with a vengeance to win. And I thought that was, in such a contained story, was told really well in both book and show. But yeah, I don't know. What other themes did you kind of suss out from this?
No, I think that kind of hits it. The only other thing I would add is it felt like when we were getting towards the end, there was a little bit of that capitalism versus communism battle going on. I mean, Walter Tevis was born in the 20s. He died in the 80s. So a big chunk of his adult life was during, post World War II, during, like, McCarthyism. And it felt like a little bit of that might have been at play here. Not overtly, but I definitely kind of felt that undercurrent as Beth was ramping up to go to Russia to play in the Russian chess tournament.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, like, it's a good point you bring up, because I wasn't even thinking about that, of, like, his lifetime. but this is a guy who was in the Navy during these years. And I mean, this is coming out peak, like he's writing this and thinking about this like peak Cold War. And it's funny that the Russians aren't written as like complete villains in this. It is kind of written with like no judgment. And like Borgov is just a guy who loves chess. And there's no like weird stereotypes about, the Russians, or she even like refuses the Christian group because she doesn't believe in like the crusade that they're kind of casting. So it's like, I don't know, it was a little bit surprising to me when you mentioned that, because you would think, some guy who served in the Navy and is writing this in the 80s would have a stronger opinion, but he really doesn't.
I mean, maybe he did and he just didn't write it.
He just didn't write it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a little tough because it's in reverse again, but when you reread the book, and knowing you've seen the show, like, what do you think that they had to get right for this to work as a TV adaptation?
Yeah, I think even just thinking about the plot, you have to find a way to make chess exciting. On something that's so central to chess, where you cannot avoid having it on the screen. It cannot be dead time. It has to be engaging. And that's hard because watching chess, I feel like for most people inherently isn't fun.
Yeah, nobody just watches chess.
So it's kind of like
the
golf,
Russians,
to be honest. If you're not like super into it, watching people move, like you don't appreciate the pawn play. You don't appreciate a 50-yard shot that's, a dart 2 feet from the green. So they had to do that. I think they did it. Spoiler, I guess. That was my key to the adaptation here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. To make this even just exciting to watch is a feat in itself. And like, if you don't translate the excitement of how the chess scenes were written to the screen, it's like, who's going to watch a 7-episode series about some girl who's great at chess and there's nothing else going on, honestly. I think I know your answer to this. Would you consider this book, for the people who've seen the show, a must experience it, and experience it if you like the show, or would you just say skip it?
Skip it. See, none of the above.
Yeah. I think it's short enough that, like, if you really love the Queen's Gambit and you just want to kind of read it and be with them, go for it.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're acting like it's written poorly, which I think is so inaccurate. I think it's written really well.
It is written well, but like I said, I don't think reading the book is a value add to the TV show. I think if you do one or the other, great, but you don't need to do both. Like when we talked about Jurassic Park or The Shining or all these others where you get so much character depth that you don't get in the show or the movie because of, the limitations of the time and the literal time and the time it was made. Here, when you take a 250-page book and you make it 8 hours of television, they captured everything. And they even built on in some areas in a way that made it a more enticing story for me. So again, in the context of what we're doing, it's a skip it, but it's not a poorly written book. And I'm glad it was written because now I have a show that I really like.
Yeah. 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 I'd probably put it in if you like the show and you're hankering for a 200-page book, it's going to satisfy you. This will work. Probably not the most glowing review you can give something, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. Translating this took 30 years. The Alan Scott, a screenwriter, purchased the rights for this in 92. And it took all of these years for this to finally hit in 2020. I mean, that's 28 years, I think.
That's crazy.
Yeah. He, not for lack of trying, this was really pushed. And in the mid 2000s, this was supposed to be the directorial debut of Heath Ledger for the Queen's Gambit. And he wanted Elliot Page to play Beth Harmon. And this was very far along. And then Heath Ledger died in January 2008. And it just kind of went right on ice for a long time again.
Wow.
Yeah. Got picked back up in the late aughts. Is that what you call those? I don't know. That's the 2000s, the 2010s.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. And Netflix ordered this as a limited 7-episode series. So yeah, he's pushing 27 years post getting the rights. And Anya Taylor-Joy is picked to play the lead. Scott Frank served as writer, director, and executive producer on this, and it hit in October of 2020. Peak COVID time. Normally, I ask you, Nick, for a summary of the adaptation of the plot, but there's nothing different here.
Do you want me to reread what you said earlier?
No, that's all right.
Oh, what? You saying you don't want to listen to my voice? What are you trying to tell me, Randy?
I want to hear your voice tell me. I know what you thought of the show, but high level thoughts. First time you watched it, kind of what were you thinking? Rewatch, how did that go? Just give me some stuff to bite into there.
My first time was like everybody's first time. It was, spur of the moment and way too quick. I probably I sat down and I binged it. And I remember just not being able to stop watching it. It was so good. I probably watched 4 episodes one day and 4 episodes the next day.
Yeah. I think
rewatch,
that's exactly
same
what we
thing.
did.
I think it holds up for a rewatch. I think this was probably my first introduction to Anya Taylor-Joy as well. And
definitely our breakout.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you only watched this once, or have you rewatched it?
I only watched it once prior, but I rewatched it for this.
Okay.
So within, I'd say it was probably last week. We watched pretty much it all. I would like an episode or 2 a night, and after 4 days, you're done it. Yeah, I remember liking it a lot when we first watched it. It has the quality to it where it just feels very well done and well crafted. Not even just the story, which I didn't know was a book, but it felt like the production design of it, like everything just looked good. There was an additional level of care to this than some Netflix shows kind of get, and it was the case where Netflix struck gold with something like they can do from time to time, like with the Stranger Things. Like this just caught on like wildfire, and it was probably a right place, right time.
Yeah,
not the type of show that I like think about all the time, like years and years later, like just like ruminates in my brain. But it's definitely the type of show that's just for what it is, it's a good vibe. It's a fun show to hang out with and just kind of like sink into. It's not like you're like getting cliffhangers of like, you kind of know what's going to go down in this typically, of like, she's probably going to get really good at chess and win against Borgov. Like you can kind of see what's happening. But that's not the point of it. Like it's not leaving you needing to know what happens. It's just leaving you feeling like happy with the time you're spending with it. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it just as much on the rewatch, probably more because the rewatch happened after my read of the book. You already mentioned Anya Taylor-Joy, kind of the breakout. What did you think of her as Beth Harmon as we move into casting?
Yeah, overall casting 4 out of 5. Thought it was really good. I don't know if it was perfect, but that's I don't know. I don't know if you could be here. I really liked it. If you listen to our Dune 2 episode, you already know where I'm going with this, but Anya Taylor-Joy is the absolute queen of visual acting. I swear to God, she could do an entire movie without saying a word, and you would know every feeling she had. I'm just a stan. She's one of my favorites right now in Hollywood, for sure. I will go see pretty much anything she puts out.
Are you going to see Furiosa?
Absolutely, I'm going to see Furious. Well, also, I like Mad Max, so I was going to see that anyway. But then put her in it, sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped. I mean, Charlize Theron was so good.
She was Furiosa, so good.
And I'm excited to see Anya pick up the mantle. Yeah, we're going tomorrow night.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Back to Queen's Gambit, though, Anya. Yeah, she's excellent. I mean, revelation when this came out. So good.
What about, what is it, Marielle Heller? Who played Alma? You said you love those scenes.
standout for me. She crushed
Okay.
it as Mrs. Wheatley. I mean, it's easy to say standout now because we've lived with Anya Taylor-Joy as like a budding movie star for 4 years now. And so it's like, on my rewatch, Anya doesn't feel that incredible as she did the first time because I just like know her and expect that of the role a little bit. No shade at all what she's doing here. But rewatching it, I was like, man, Mrs. Wheatley is such a fun hang. Like she is so good in this show. And I enjoyed her so much in the book with Beth. And in the show, I'm like, I hope they just zag here and Mrs. Wheatley doesn't die. And instead, we just get a 3-season series of Beth and Mrs. Wheatley traveling to fancy hotels, eating expensive food, and occasionally playing chess. Like, I would watch a show of just that.
Yeah.
So good.
I agree. It was a lot of fun. The scenes were really impactful, I think, in that time that Beth got to spend with her mother.
Yeah. And something they added to the show that I really loved was the moment when Mrs. Wheatley gives Beth the watch that says like something like "with love from mother," and that wasn't in the book, and that was just a really sweet moment. I was like,
"Yeah,
you're a real one, Mrs. Wheatley." So yeah, real standout performance for me. Just really fun stuff. It's funny because in the show, I mean, even in the book, you're not with Scheibel too long. Like you get what, like an episode or two? In the book you get maybe 50 pages.
Tops.
But what'd you think of him? What'd you think of Bill Camp?
Bill Camp was great. I really liked Scheibel as a character. I liked that he didn't feel like a caricature. And I feel like that character easily could have slipped into that, but he didn't. And I thought the performance added some comedic relief, especially in those early episodes. And even in the book, just the way he's written and his sternness and the like awkwardness between him and Harmon. I liked it. I think it added that character in both mediums, I think added a lot to the early part of the show and book.
Yeah, no, he was great. I was thinking again, rewatching this, like, this could so easily come off as like extremely creepy. There is a girl in a basement playing chess with this older man down here, and nobody really knows it. And like, never feels that way. Like, not even once. Like, he clearly does not want her around at the beginning. So yeah, I'm glad that didn't happen. And I think I've just got a real soft spot for Scheibel-like characters. Your Hagrids of the world, your Obi-Wans, your Stilgers, your Mushus in Milan. I love that character that just leads our hero into their new world. And it's like, it's such a likable role that a character can have in a movie. And he's just great. I was so sad when he died and Beth didn't pay him back.
Yeah, he was a frump. Like, let's talk about that. Like, he was just a grumpy old man. He was grumpy. And everyone's like, he's amazing. We love him.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that guy in real life. No. Everyone's like, why?
Yeah.
But, hey, Bill Camp did. I don't think we can give Bill Camp our best performance award because he wasn't in the show enough relative to these other characters we're talking about. But I do think we would be remiss if we didn't discuss what we just did and how good of a supporting role he really did.
I mean, and you even get the character build out of he's keeping all these photographs and clippings of the newspaper of Beth's winnings, and just a total gut punch when she goes down there after he passes away around the funeral weekend, and she sees that he's been tracking all this, and just tough stuff.
She should have paid him back, man.
I know. I can't believe it. I was like, I totally forgot.
He wasn't making bank.
No.
He gave her everything.
At that time, probably a decent chunk of change. It's probably like giving someone, I think I looked it up. I think it was like the equivalent of like $50 So not nothing for sure. Only casting that didn't work for me was Benny Watts. And I don't know, played by Thomas Brody Sangster, also known as Jojen Reed from Game of Thrones. And I don't know if the casting and performance didn't work for me, or I just don't like Benny, because I didn't really like Benny in the book either. Like, just it
as
was
a character,
just my least favorite part of the book, and probably my least favorite part of the show is just spending time with Benny. So that one just didn't work for me. Any Benny thoughts or others that didn't work for you?
I think he worked fine for me.
Yeah. Serve the role.
Yeah, it's not going to be a nom for best casting, but I like him. I think he did a good job. He has that like baby faced and dorkiness that I felt went with chess at the time.
Yeah.
Now
trying
that
to be cool.
I know that I'm
Yeah.
a chess player. Chess is for cool people only.
Yeah.
So it's different now. But back then I was like, oh yeah, he's dorky. Like he's fitting this role well.
Yeah. 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 I mean, overall, I don't think I gave my score. I gave this a 4 out of 5 too. I feel like they hit most of the marks. I think the most impressive thing, one, crazy that Moses Ingram played Jolene at all stages of her life in the show. Very impressive, and made it feel distinctly different. Great stuff from Moses Ingram.
It's crazy.
I thought that was really good. Dudley Dursley, Harry Melling, coming in here out of the Dursleys' Privet Drive house and is a chess prodigy now. He had a big blow up.
I did not know that until I read your notes, and that completely changed how I view that character and the show and my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like you probably haven't seen him in anything since like the last Harry Potter movie or second to last one. And he's not recognizable. I mean, he kind of lost just like that, that pudginess, from, being a kid. I liked Harry in the show. I thought he did a good job. I enjoyed him and Beth together in their scenes much more. He could be a little bit whiny, but I enjoyed him a little bit more than our time with Benny. You want to give me noms unless you got anything else to say on casting?
I got nothing else to say. I've got Anya Taylor-Joy, Bill Camp, Mariel Heller, Moses Ingram, and what is it, Marcin Dorinsky?
Who is that?
He plays Borgov.
Oh, Borgov. Oh, okay.
I thought we didn't really talk about it, but I thought that performance was stellar.
Yeah, he hit every note that he needed to hit. He was good.
As like the villain, he was a great villain for a show like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Also shout out to the frizzy-haired Russian guy. Had a lot of fun. He came in, he played 2 minutes of the game and was just lights out in those 2 minutes. Everything you wanted him to be. Yeah, for those nominees, I think this is definitely a best first favorite. Best performance, I mean, can it be anyone but Anya Taylor-Joy? I've especially going back to 2020 and not knowing who she was. My favorite is Mariel Heller as Mrs. Wheatley, but the best is it's got to be Beth, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, it's hard to go any other direction on this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, solid cast up and down, I'd say. Very few misses.
So congratulations, Anya Taylor-Joy. That's her first award for her.
Yeah, I don't think, hopefully Dune Part 3, she could get her second. We'll see. Time will tell. Plot and Faithfulness.
Somebody please write in to the Instagram and give us a better name than Watchy for our awards, please. There's $5 on the line for anyone who gives me a better name than that.
Yeah. We'll invite you on the show if you give us a better name. Plot. What did
5 out of 5? It was beat for beat. What do you mean? 5 out of 5. What else is there to say? It was a literal like beat for beat adaptation.
Okay, so you're taking this as just the adaptation of the story, not also like just the story agnostic of adaptation.
Correct.
Okay.
Because if we're talking about, like, if you're grouping plot, execution, and faithfulness to the source material, it's whatever misgivings you have with the plot are based on the source material. So now that's the baseline of where we are, and how did they do with what they were given. And I think in that context, I have to give it a 5 out of 5 here.
Yeah, that's not how I look at it. It's a definite large piece of it. But yeah, I'm a 4 out of 5 on this one. They did a great job.
Fair.
Super faithful. But it's not like it didn't hit like the amazing emotional highs of like what a story can do for me. And I agree with you that is maybe failings of the book, but it was, a 4 is very good. It was very solid for me.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you on a 4 there. If you had gone lower than a 4, we might have some words, but yeah.
Very well done. And agree, like, I think the show did a few things better than the book in terms of the plot, which for me were, there wasn't really anything on Beth's real mom. Like, you didn't get any of that parent stuff going on in the book. You like heard about what happened in the very beginning. But because you're in Beth's head, like, unless she's thinking about her mom, you're not getting exposition on her childhood. So I really enjoyed that in the show. And then they just build out the friend group a little bit more for Beth, which was very nice to see. Like the two guys who just show up. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize they were twins. I thought that they were a couple. And then Alyssa was like, my fiance, she was just like, no, they're twins. Like, they're clearly
identical twins.
I don't know. I just thought they were dating. Like, I thought they were paired up to run this chess tournament, and it was, love at first pawn or something. But they were great. And I think because the book is so in Beth's head, like, there's not she's not a conversant person. So the show building out a cast of characters to interact with her more and pull things out of her, I think worked really well.
Okay. What didn't work for you?
I didn't like the drug-induced chess scenes. And it could be an unfair criticism, because if you told me, Randy, show how to adapt her playing chess in her head and being really good at it, I don't really know what the answer is to that. But I think what didn't work for me with it was, and maybe I'm wrong about this, you tell me, it made it feel like in the show that she was only good at chess because of the pills, or like she only really excelled when she was taking pills. And I felt like I kind of understood that wasn't the case. But it definitely it makes it feel like she really relies on them, which she does to calm her nerves, but it's not what makes her great at chess. She's just a great ass chess player. Like, am I wrong that she doesn't need the pills to play great chess?
So she doesn't need the pills to play great chess, but I think really what they were trying to show with the chess on the ceiling was that moral growth of her, not even moral growth, that growth of her overcoming the addiction. So in the beginning, it's her needing to calm down and get into that state of relaxation so she can think about it. And then they talk about it in the book, her like seeing it on the ceiling, like being able to play out games.
Yeah, totally.
So you had to visually show it, right?
Yeah, I agreed.
And then at the end, when she's able to do it in Russia, completely sober, I think it was a really cool way to show the growth of the character. I can understand why it doesn't work. When I think about it, that's the context I thought about it. And it's in terms of her addiction and what she's going through and the struggle with drugs. And so from that sense, I did like it in there as an element.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe I was just misremembering, like, because I felt to even visualize the chess scenes when she was in the book, she didn't need the pills to like visualize the chess on the ceiling. but maybe I'm wrong about that. Like it seemed like she could always play chess in her head and know the moves in her head. And I just thought it was a little bit confusing in this show, but I could just be misremembering as well.
I think it highlighted the drugs as a crutch.
Yeah,
there.
Which they are. That is,
they are. Oh, for sure.
That is accurate. Yeah. It definitely helps.
Yeah.
Because even I think in book and show, when she goes to play the tournament at the first time she goes over to the high school, she's panicking and she's nervous, and Jolene gets her the pills, and it's until that moment, she's not doing so hot. So yeah, that was kind of the worst choice for me adaptation wise, but overall it was, I thought they did a pretty great job. Like I said, it's not a story that like sticks with me in terms of I think about it all the time of what this brought to kind of like my life or what the characters did, but it was just a well told story, paced well, told well, enjoyable. I do have a nitpick.
Nice. Let's hear it.
No way in hell you could put pills in a toothbrush holder without them like getting soggy and disintegrating. Like if you store a toothbrush sticking straight up, like the water, like, after you're done brushing your teeth, it kind of runs down, the handle a little bit. So unless you're like hand drying your toothbrush every time, I feel like it's going to get a little bit wet inside that toothbrush holder. And then these pills are going to start sticking together, and it's just going to be a mess. Like it's not a good spot to hide them.
I got nothing. Fair.
What do you think? Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm calling bullshit.
Maybe it's one of those toothbrush holders that's 2 partitions and you store your drugs in one and your toothbrush in another. I don't know.
Could be. Maybe she didn't store a toothbrush in there. I don't know.
Yeah. I've never thought about it. So
yeah.
I'm on the spot here trying to think of ways that could work. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just like, gotta be a better spot than that. Were there any choices, what would you say that they made that were really great adaptation choices? Did anything come to mind for you plot-wise?
You know what? No, nothing that we haven't already touched on.
Yeah.
It's really hard to pick a best adaptation choice when I don't feel like they had to make any choices because they were able to capture so much of that plot. They wouldn't have to say, is it this or that? They took the best of it and then built on the best of it. So that might be my best adaptation choices. Going in a story like this, going beat for beat because you have the ability to. Instead of trying to condense into an hour and a half was fantastic.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would have is that could have like elevated it for me would have been, it's almost like the emotional payoff didn't quite completely ring for me at the end. And I think, and that, I don't know if that, it's not a complaint because it's kind of nice that this is just a story about someone who's great at chess and she goes on and she beats the Russian and that's it. Like that's what this story is. But when you kind of like know that's going to be the case, and then in the book, it's like she beats him, she walks to a park and it's over. I didn't feel like I kind of got the emotional resolution that I was hoping for throughout the book. And it was kind of similar to in the show where it's like she's gone through so much over the course of her life and is also dealing with addiction. And you just kind of I didn't get quite the resolution on the emotional beats that I was hoping for. And that's not like something that I'm like, oh, they didn't land the plane on this. It's just like, something a little more there would have worked for me, but I still loved it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's a fair criticism. I hadn't thought of that until you just said it, but I'm going to ruminate on that one for a while.
Yeah. Episode nominations.
Yeah. What do you got for me?
Again, I'm going to only go 3 because this is a limited series. Pilot episode. Great introduction to the world. Fun stuff. Not fun stuff at the orphanage, but it's really fun to just see the person, the hero, discover what it is that they are amazing at and step into this new world. It's just always exciting to see those beginnings. So that was really good stuff. The child actress who played Elizabeth, very good too. Like, no notes on anything there. I put episode 3. This is my Mrs. Wheatley bias. This is when she's getting really great at chess. She's traveling with Mrs. Wheatley. She's winning tournaments.
Is that when they go to Mexico? No, that's when they go to Cincinnati.
Yeah. They go to, Las Vegas, and she's kind of reunited with Towns there. And,
that's in episode 3?
That's in episode 3.
Okay.
And Towns is an interesting one. That was a bit of a change in the show as well. I keep wanting to say movie. I don't know how I feel about it. It just kind of was.
It worked for me.
Yeah. They definitely built out the characters more, so I remembered who they were in the show. It's also easier because you're seeing them. In the book, I'm just reading these names and I'm like, who the hell was Towns again? Harry Beltic. Which one was he? But yeah, so episode 3, that is where they first devised the strategy of, Mrs. Wheatley can get a kickback, on this. And they're starting to have all of that. And then she also she closes the episode with her first loss, which was against Benny. And then they finished the next day as co-champions. And the third contender I had was the conclusion. You pretty much kick off with the flashbacks of her mom and her visiting her biological father. She goes deep into her addiction throes and is struggling. She revisits the orphanage after Scheibel dies. Jolene pulls her out of the abyss and kind of sets her straight again. And then she has her final match against Borgov in the finale. So those are the 3. I
gotta go episode 7.
Yeah. Hits a lot of beats.
3 is solid as well. That originally I thought that might be, but you're right. It's episode 7.
Yeah. What do you think pushes it over the mark for you?
I don't know if it's any one thing as much as it's a lot of little things, such as the accumulation of the story, getting closure with some characters that really worked for me, the heightened tension of the episode. It just really worked. I don't know.
I love Jolene coming back, both book and show. I think the reintroduction, which I kind of did not expect in the first time seeing the show, was really fun. It was great to see her come back in and be the one who snaps her out of this, because as you're watching it and as you're reading it, you're kind of thinking, what is going to be the thing that kind of lights the spark again? And it was a change where I think in the book, she seeks Jolene out. She calls Mrs. Deardorff and she's like, can you give me the contact information? And Mrs. Deardorff's like, well, I shouldn't really do this. Some orphanage warden would say, or whatever her title is. Warden is probably not the name. And in the show,
feels appropriate for what that was, though.
Feels appropriate. In the show, Jolene seeks her out. And it was just great. It was fun to see her re-enter the scene. I thought the stuff of her like having to work out in the book was really funny. And it was just great to see her. There was one part where she's like, this will work your pectorals. And Beth is like, I thought that was a fish. Like just some like really good stuff. In kind of those episodes we didn't hit, anything stand out for you that I kind of missed, or just parts you like? You said you like the Towns, stuff and the expansion of his character. Anything else stick out?
When she wins the Kentucky. The state championship, which I think is episode 2. That
I think
whole introduction to Towns and the twins and Harry, and
it's great stuff.
Unspoken mentoring that starts to happen there. I really liked it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, there's something so fun about watching the scenes and reading the scenes where everyone's still underestimating her, and then she's just wiping the floor with them. It's just so enjoyable. Just good stuff. In terms of the world building and aesthetics, this straddles the plot a bit, and we talked about this is what you had to do. But in terms of the world building, like of chess, amazing that they made this understandable.
Fantastic.
Like you start to like actually learn a little bit of like what they're describing. I mean, I'll be honest, in the book, I was like glossing over when they were like really going heavy on the moves because I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But they really make it understandable in the show and like exciting to watch. Like,
Yeah,
and like
they do. And they also build on the world of chess, not just you're playing these local people, but that there's these massive international tournaments and that people made money and that it's a very serious thing for a lot of people. I think that was understated in what society knows to be chess before the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and also you learn a little bit about like, wow, like Russia really takes this seriously. Like, I don't think prior to seeing this show in 2020 that I knew how big of a deal chess was there. So you like also just like learn all these nuances. And of course I'd heard the term of like a grandmaster, but I didn't know what a grandmaster was. I didn't know what the scoring was. It sounded like SAT scores. So they really build it out and like dish it out in layman's terms. I'm like, okay, I kind of follow what's going on here. Like, I know who goes first, by the end of this. Actually, I didn't because I forgot about it when we started this. But when I was reading it, I felt like I was remembering. How did the world building aesthetics go for you with the show?
4 out of 5. I think I agree with everything you just said about world building from a chess standpoint, and even a world building from like that time period. And I know that kind of goes into the aesthetics as well, but the set was fantastic.
So good.
I really felt immersed in the time.
Yeah.
And I don't always feel that when we do these. And I just thought it was superb there. I don't have a good reason why I'm docking it a point. It just doesn't feel like a 5 to me.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's sometimes you want to be judicious with your 5s.
Yeah. And it just, I can't quite pinpoint it, but it feels wrong. So it gets a 4.
Yeah. Yeah. When you see it, it does work really well as a period piece. Like you said, I mean, as they're scanning the years, it's the type of show where if I wasn't watching it and I just turned this on, I would be able to tell you probably within a 5-year radius of what year this is taking place. Just really good stuff on that part.
Dude, that like gaudy 60s and 70s interior was 50s, 60s, 70s was just, they nailed it.
Yeah.
Her house was like blue.
Yeah. The amount of wallpaper in there.
Oh, gross.
Could have covered circumference of the United States in wallpaper from Mrs. Wheatley's house alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those tacky couches.
Yeah. That also just don't look comfortable at all.
Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit.
In your sitting room, you're going to have in the room you're designed to just sit and talk in, you're going to have this uncomfortable ass furniture. Come on.
Yeah. What's funny is I feel like in the book she was describing, I can't remember if it was Mrs. Wheatley's couch. I think it was, where she kept the plastic sort of wrap on the couch. And I feel like my grandparents, when I was a kid, did not unwrap their couch. And you would sit on like this hard ass plastic. And I'm like, can we just unwrap this? Like, we're supposed to be comfortable. That's the point of this.
Just silly.
Yeah, they did a lot of good stuff. In terms of the aesthetics, I want to shout out a few things. You mentioned the Kentucky tournament. I thought just like, it felt like you were almost like, it felt like Greece a little bit. Like when they went into that gymnasium with like how everyone was dressed and like the things hanging on the wall of the pennants. And not only did it look great, but then also just like, I loved when the camera was kind of following Beth and she's walking back to where they have the top boards, which are behind those kind of like panels. And then the camera like sails over the panels to them. The Kentucky tournament in general, it was such a great scene. They just did everything so well there. The other mini thing that I want to point out was in the opening scene of the show, when she kind of wakes up, haphazard in the hotel room and she's late to play Borgoff. You can see in her room, there's a chessboard and the chess pieces are mini bottles of alcohol that are on the side, which is just great stuff. I think that's just a nod to the production design. I mean, you said this stuff looks so good. So good. And yeah, everything was just really fun about this. This was a huge standout for me. 4.5 out of 5. I agree. I can't quite go 5. I don't know why. But
that's a strong score though. 4.5.
Yeah. I mean, as a period piece, it's great. Good stuff.
Honestly, I think even in this conversation, I would like to go 4.5.
Okay.
As well.
Bumping you up. How did the sound go for you?
I'm going to go 3.5 here. Mostly because I just can't. It wasn't even that long ago that I rewatched this, and I cannot think of one bit of the use of sound, which I also think is good because that means whatever they were doing with the sound kept me engaged in the show, but wasn't overbearing against anything. But nothing sticks out to me, so I got to go 3.5 here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much different. I think I'm at a 4 on sound.
Okay.
I really liked a lot of some of the original tracks. I was listening to it while I was working on notes, and Endgame, great little ditty. If you want to go listen to that one.
Okay.
I thought the use of pop music was good. Again, it helped really put you in the time, that she was in.
Yeah.
I thought more so than the soundtrack, but the sound design and the sound editing was just really fun in this.
Okay.
Could call out 2 things in particular. One is a very simple one. One is a bigger one, but simple one, just the clack of the clock to like build the tension as they're playing. Such a simple thing, but it just it really works so well to like as a tension builder. So good stuff there.
That's a good call.
And the other one I really liked was there was a scene, it was in episode 2 or 3, where there was a piano playing at the chess tournament. And at the start of the match, the final match, the piano starts playing, and then Beth wins the match and it's building, and then it starts to kind of fall again in terms of tempo. And it transitions to Beth walking home, and she walks in the house. And as she walks in the house, you turn the corner and it's Mrs. Wheatley playing the piano to like the tune of the piano that's been going the whole time. And I was just like, wow, like they're just kind of flexing a little bit on some of these parts. That's just good
really
stuff.
Cool. I didn't catch that at all. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. But it was good. I mean, real solid work. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Legacy standalone. We talked about this as a COVID sensation. How do you kind of think about this one?
4.5 out of 5. I think you're right. It is a COVID sensation. We were all stuck at home, couldn't do anything, and they came out with this killer content, and it got millions of people to sign up for chess.com. Like literally millions.
Yeah.
So I think
there was a chess boom
from that. And a lot of it survived, and I think it won a bunch of awards. I'm not sure how many. I think the legacy is kind of undeniable at this point for what it did.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. It won a ton of stuff. I mean, it was I pulled some numbers for which I don't even know if this stuff it's hard to know what is helpful with streaming, because we're totally changing the way of how we talk about success of TV shows with streaming.
Yeah.
Where the Nielsen ratings are not a thing. But this was in October that year, was the most watched show on Netflix in the United States. And by November, it had been watched by 62 million households since its release, and that was the biggest show in Netflix's history for a limited series to date. Guy who bought the rights said he was delighted and dazed, seeing this 30 years later actually come to fruition and be a huge success when people told him this story about chess was an unlikely success. You said awards. This picked up 11 primetime Emmys.
That's insane.
Yeah. And which is big. I was looking at, because I wasn't sure, I was trying to look at what it was going up against that year in kind of the limited series category. I don't know if you watched Mare of Easttown on HBO. Unbelievable series. I think I really like, obviously we've been talking about, I really like The Queen's Gambit. Mare of Easttown, I think, blows it out. But Queen's Gambit beat it out for the Emmy that year, though Anya Taylor-Joy lost to Kate Winslet, who was the lead for the lead role.
It's messed up.
But I mean, you mentioned, sorry, go ahead.
I got a number for you. So 62 million households.
Yeah.
Times an average of $10 a movie ticket, and let's assume an average of 2 people per household, that's $1.2 billion at the box office. If you look at it that way, like that's the kind of level of hype it was getting.
What's the population of the US? 300 million?
I think it's more than that.
I have
Isn't
no
it
idea.
closer to
I have no
4?
idea. I just threw out a number.
333 million as of 2022.
62 million households in the US. 62 million out of 300 million.
Well, that's not 62. That's globally
households.
62. 62 million.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. It said it was the biggest in October in the US. Okay. 62 million is still a lot, though.
It's a shit ton.
Yeah. I mean, you figure average household, 2.5 people or something. It's 150 million people.
Yeah. It's a silly number.
Yeah. Cleaned up in all the production categories, all the sound categories. I didn't even know there were that many. Won music composition, sound editing, sound mixing. Cleaned up at all of them. Won the Golden Globe for Best Television Limited Series. Anya won that award for performance by an actress in a limited series. Yeah, this was great for me. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I mean, it was amazing. I think it'll be interesting to see what Anya Taylor-Joy does, because she still has kind of the, you see her and, she's so synonymous with Queen's Gambit. She's breaking that, I think, and getting some of these roles lately. But everybody watched this. People loved it. So yeah, it was really well done. What does that put us in on scores?
You tell me.
So we both gave 4s for cast. We had an 8 combined score on casting, 9 for plot, so we're at 17, 9 total for world building. So that's 26. 26 plus 7.5 is 33.5. Plus another 8.
41.5.
41.5 plus another half. It's 42.
42.
42 out
Solid.
of 50. Yeah.
Solid.
That's really good. Fallout was what, like a 43? I have it on my notebook here. No, Fallout was a 41. So this is just a notch above Fallout.
Suck it, Fallout.
Yeah, pretty comparable, I'd say. I mean, it makes sense. Still no Ocean's 11, but it's a solid score. Who got the awards?
Nothing's going to be Ocean's 11.
It's going to be monumental.
Anya Taylor-Joy got one award.
Yeah.
Episode 7
finale. Oh,
got one award.
And the who won the who won the show?
I'm giving it to Anya. I didn't even come with a second suggestion. I think this just catapulted her career, and now she's done some really great things, and I think she's going to continue to rise, and I think she won. That or chess.com. Chess.com might have won too.
Yeah. I was sitting on the couch today, and I was like, what is Nick going to say for who won the show or stole the show? And I was like, he's going to say chess players, isn't he? So I was close with chess.com.
You were close.
It's close.
You were close.
I had Anya too. I threw in Scott Frank there, the guy who bought the rights, worked on this and tried to get it made for 30 years, didn't give up. I just want a little tip of the hat to Scott for making that happen, but it's Anya.
Totally fair. Yeah. So Anya got 2 watchies. Anya, we will mail these to you if you just want to kindly tell us where to mail them.
Yep. Or you could, come on the show and we can virtually give them to you.
We'll do Last Night in Soho, not an adaptation, but a dope movie.
Have you seen The Northman with her in it?
No, not yet. I want to.
Yeah. Well, and we can recap Furiosa after this week.
Bonus episode.
Yeah. Obviously, we recommend the show. This is excellent. I don't think there's a single person that I know of who hasn't seen this. Everyone has seen it. If you somehow haven't, you got to go watch it. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up here?
No. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Next episode.
What are we covering next time?
I think it'll be The Watchers horror movie.
Nice.
Releasing by the time this is out, later this month, by daughter of M. Night Shyamalan, Ishana Shyamalan. I've started the book. I think I'm maybe 15% in per my Kindle. It's I'm not quite at the point where I can't read it in after hours, but I feel like I'm cresting that that hill and getting there.
Okay.
I've seen the trailer a bajillion times at the movie theaters. They're playing it a lot right now.
It looks so good.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm curious. Have you finished the book, or are you still working on it?
I am very close to being finished, so I don't want to say anything.
Okay, cool. If you have thoughts you want to share on this episode, past episodes, or anything upcoming, you can message us on Instagram at Rewatch Play Podcast. Follow us there. You can email us at rewatchplaypod. Find us on all your major platforms, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate and review, 5 stars only, as those things help more people find the show. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you, Nick, for teaching me the Queen's Gambit. I'm still working on my Sicilian defense. Till next time, everybody.